Hey, how's it going? Otaku Mike here, back again with another episode of the Usagi Podjimbo podcast. I'm your host, as always. Let's get into this. We're going to be talking about Chapter 2 of the Dragon Bellow Conspiracy, The Wind's Howl. Our story starts out with uh, the Lord Tamakuro. He looks like he has like some kind of like kendo stick or something in his hands, and he is basically over Tomoe, and Tomoe is bound and beaten and bruised, and he's like, "Who sent you? Tell me who sent you. I need to know exactly what's going on. I need answers. Tell me what I need to know." And Tomoe bites Lord Takuro's fingers. I said Takuro, I meant Tamakuro. Fingers. And he's like, "We'll make you talk. You're going to be begging to talk, so we'll leave you alone," basically. And they leave her there in the jail cell. And Tamakuro starts to wonder and contemplate, what's going on, what happened, why are the Neko ninjas there? The Neko ninjas basically work for Lord Hikiji, somebody who Tamakuro used to have an alliance with or used to work for, and he's trying to basically stockpile weapons so he can gain power himself in order to, I guess, dethrone Lord Hikiji. And so there he's thinking and contemplating about that aspect. We transition from that to Gin. Gin is still walking. He made it through the storm. He's still cussing, blasting, you know, cursing around, very much not in a good mood because he had to walk through this terrible storm. And he finds a hut. He notices that he's a wanderer seeking refuge. He sees that there's other people in here at the moment. What he doesn't know is this is the exact hut that Zato-Ino is in, who Zato-Ino killed the people who were in this particular hut. And he finds out that he goes rummaging through their stuff. He's like, "Oh man, all these guys are dead. Who killed all these guys?" Basically, it's like, "Oh, I guess it's my luck, to make my own hospitality, Got anything value on you?" He says at one point to one of the dead bodies, and he pulls out, he's like, you got nothing, you're poor. And he finds this sketch of Zato-Ino, and he's like, "This is the guy I'm looking for," basically. And he again puts two and two together that these guys were bounty hunters and they were looking for Zato-Ino for the reward. He thanks them for making the process a little bit easier, and he because they're not in the running to get the reward, and he kind of, you know, it, he kind of starts to ponder like where exactly is Zato-Ino. He also will never forgive Zato-Ino for what he's done to Gin for making him actually work for a bounty, surprisingly. So we transition from there to a hot springs. We see Ino or Zato-Ino at a hot springs. He's like, "Oh, this is wonderful, isn't it, Spot?" Spot's really enjoying himself. He's shooting water out of his mouth. He happens to come across two women. One looks like a cat and one looks like a fox. And they're like, "Oh, can we, help you out, sir? We didn't know you were here. Can we possibly, we can go find another pool if we need to." He's like, "No, no, no, please. I'm blind. I can't see, you know, so you can bathe in privacy, basically." And he's like, "Oh, thank you. Thanks for letting us join you. Would you like to have some lunch with us? And after that, we can scrub your back." So I think something little might be going on here, to say the least. And then we transition from that to a little joke where Gin is like, "Bah, I hate this weather. Uh, I can only take joy and the fact that I know you're freezing and miserable as I am, Zato-Ino. So that's pretty funny to see the juxtaposition of Gen and Zato-Ino and their different journeys they are taking at this moment. And so we transition from that to another player enters the story. We have Shinji, the Neko Ninja clan. Neko Ninja clan. We remember him from this Shogun's Gift. He's the one who tried to steal the Muramasa blade from Lord Noriyuki, and he goes back to Lord Hikiji's. I guess he's his like right hand man. Hebe, I believe his name is, and we see like the aftermath of in like a little flashback of like what exactly happened to Shinji after the fact. He lost to Usagi. Uh, we find out that uh, Shinji has been like a faithful servant to Lord Ikiji and stuff like that. But Hebe ends up sending Shinji off to go investigate and infiltrate Lord Tamakuro's castle and basically possibly mm, take care of him and see exactly what his plans are to rise up against Lord Hikiji. Potentially, maybe. We don't know yet. So he runs off to go investigate Lord Tamakuro. Shinji does. And then we transition from that back to the main man of the story, or I guess of this whole series, is Usagi. I totally forgot to mention a part where Lord Tamakuro is actually found, or his people found the Neko Ninja group, and they are sending people to take care of them in this particular village that they're staying at in the moment. And that's where we are on right now. Usagi lost the trail to Tomoe, and he comes upon this village. He sees and he wonders, why are there all these crows out there? We find out why, because Lord Tamakuro's people end up killing this entire village of ninjas, particularly the Neko ninjas, and it's a very it's a very gruesome scene. I would have to say, like, it's a very sad scene because all these uh people have been massacred for potentially no particular reason, but Usagi puts two and two together. They're all ninja. They have shuriken molds, for their weapons. There's trap doors and stuff like that. And he's like, whoever has been responsible for this carnage is no longer here, and he starts to wonder what exactly happened. And he goes and takes all of the bodies and moves them into the huts, I guess, to be respectful of the dead so the crows don't go and feast on the flesh of these dead ninjas. As Usagi is finishing up and walking off, who happens to come upon this but Shinji? And Shinji definitely has a grudge against Miyamoto Usagi, and he, because of what happened with him and the Muramasa blade and a issue or two ago, and he's like, what was he doing at my hideout? What's going on? He finds all of his friends and potentially family members massacred. He's like, they're all dead. This is a very gut wrenching scene, and he's like, the Ronin's clothes were stained with blood, and he like cuts this pot, and it catches. There's stuff in the pot, but it goes into the fire, and I guess maybe it like creates a fire and burns down the hut or the entire village that he is at the moment. And he is like, the fire will eliminate any evidence the ninja presence was here. Now I must avenge them. And then we transition from that to Lord Tamakuro. Lord Tamakuro is testing out his new flintlock pistols. And Lord Tamakuro asks his right hand man, he's like, hey, did you take care of that ninja village? And he's like, yeah, I took care of it. Uh, we will rest assured they will not betray our your plans. And Lord Tomakuro is like, good. By the time Hikichi learns of my scheme, it'll be too late. And he's using humans as target practice. They're tied up to these big stakes in the ground, and you can see their faces. They're like, "Oh shit! Like this is really gonna happen to us. Like, are we gonna die?" Luckily, it looks like only maybe one of them is dead so far, or maybe two of them are dead. I can't really tell. But the one in the middle does not look like he is having very much fun. His eyes are bugged out and whatnot. And so we see Shinji tracking down Usagi, and he starts throwing ninja stars at Usagi. Usagi is very much caught off guard. He's like, "Who's there? Show yourself!" And Shinji is up in the forest, up in the trees, and Usagi says, "Shinji," and Shinji's like, "So you remember me? You have been a thorn in the heel of the Neko Ninjas. In the past, we met you as warriors, but to slaughter children, that cannot be tolerated." He says, uh, "I destroyed the bodies in the pyre." And Shinji is like, "I saw you leave. Blood was on your hands." And Usagi is trying to explain himself, and he's like, "No, I mean, yes, the blood was on my hands, but I did not kill them. I found them. I was trying to basically be respectful to them, and uh, I'm carrying the corpses inside." And Usagi gets hit with a bunch of smoke bombs. He tries to get away, but unfortunately, he ends up hitting one of Shinji's traps, and these spears come rushing at Usagi. Usagi happens to deflect them with his sword, and you hear like, "Run, Usagi." But in this forest, I have the advantage. It is mine. You won't escape. And very much Shinji is the apex predator in this scenario. He definitely has the advantage. Usagi's trying to figure out what exactly is going on. His clan must have had traps, so hiding places throughout this entire area. You know, it's crazy how much Shinji has the advantage at this time. But Shinji keeps pressuring and putting pressure on Usagi, saying that Usagi killed his clansmen and children and stuff like that. And we get this really cool scene where Usagi's running away through a waterfall. Shinji happens to jump up and go after him, basically. And Usagi is trying to reason with him. Why would I be responsible for their deaths? And Shinji is not having it. He's like, no, you're just trying to squirm your way out of this, Ronin. And what we get is probably one of, if not one of the coolest fights in Usagi Yojimbo from at this moment, or for right now. One of the coolest fight scenes. I say they're fighting on a waterfall. Uh, Shinji is fighting with these two like little sickles or scythes, and Usagi is fighting with his sword, obviously. And you get this like really cool dynamic fight scene. At one point, Usagi ends up cutting through the sickles and gets the advantage and happens to kick Shinji off the cliff. And Usagi wonders if he actually has perished and hit the rocks below. But Shinji actually survived with his handy dandy grappling hook. Shinji basically says he's going to pick up Usagi's trail and avenge his fallen comrades soon enough. Later on, Usagi finally makes it to the fortress town where Tamakuro is located. He starts to notice that there's different samurai around with different crests, and he happens to stop one and says, "Excuse me, hey, who is the lord of this fortress, in this fortress town?" And the tiger guy is like, "Oh, it's Lord Tamakuro." Ronin, have you come to enter into his services? He's like, services? Yes, the Lord is seeking numerous new retainers for his fortress. And the random samurai happens to say, many of us were once Ronin like you are. It is good to serve a lord again. See you later. And we end this issue with Usagi looking up at the fortress, and he just says, Lord Tomakuro. And that's where chapter 2 ends. This chapter keeps, this particular story keeps weaving like a very tangled web, I would have to say. It's very much a conspiracy, like I'm saying, a conspiracy to dethrone or overthrow Lord Hikiji. The plot definitely thickens, and the good guys are definitely not winning at this moment. Tomoe is definitely still she is still tied up and may or may not survive this. I don't know, but it's cool to see and get more emphasis on the Neko ninjas. I know they've shown up here and there in like a more secondary role, but having Shinji around and having really huge stakes and is very now much on a quest for revenge, even though we personally know his revenge is points at the wrong person. He wants to go after Lord Tamakuro, but he is going after Usagi because there was a big, giant misunderstanding. Eventually, I'm guessing Gen and Zato-Ino will show up in this, will show up and be a bigger part of this story, but they have yet to do that in this. This issue was a lot of fun. It felt like it was a little bit longer than, I would say, one shots or like previous issues I have read, but maybe that's just because I was reading it in the trade. Who knows? Um, as always, Stan Sakai like basically bangs out and like rocks the action sequences that he does. They're all bangers, and this one was a lot of fun to see Usagi on the defensive for once. I think the last time we saw Usagi have a problem really fighting somebody was Jay, but seeing Usagi kind of out of his elements fighting a ninja was pretty cool because we've seen him fight ninja before, but not a ninja of this caliber, of this skill level, which Shinji is a really cool character, I have to say. I'm really starting to like him more and more every time I see him, and he is definitely a character to look out for. I do have to say so. But definitely stay tuned for the next issue, which is chapter 3, which will be Downpour. I'm looking forward to getting into this. If you have any feedback or anything like that, you can hit me up on my Facebook page, Usagi Podjimbo, and Usagi Yojimbo podcast, or you can hit me up on usagipod@gmail.com. I'm there as well. Podcast on all major podcast platforms. Check it out. Leave a review. Share the podcast with your friends. That's the best way to help out this podcast and help it grow. Hope you guys really enjoyed this particular episode, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace out. Stay safe and go read some Usagi Yojimbo.